By the way, this video is actually sponsored by Atlas VPN.
The former tech wonder kid is the king of laziness.
I brush my teeth once a week, maybe.
Who does that?
No one.
Either be mama's boy or be your own man. It's up to you.
And hopefully you can tell where this video is going already. I didn't expect to be talking about Phil McGraw again. I've made 3 videos criticising his therapeutic show in the past, and I've always tried to be fair, sometimes definitely too fair, I think, but I just feel criticism is more meaningful when it isn't just completely hammering them. Similarly, I don't want to just make videos about them for the sake of content. I want to have something worthwhile to say. And in that sense, I do find the more I look at this show, the more I discover there is so much we could talk about with this man. So many different, bizarre, questionable episodes. And I know there might be some of you who'll defend him. That's okay, you don't have to agree with me. I've even discussed some positives in the past. One of them being that at least he does kind of draw some attention to the idea of mental health. But then I saw this video and it baffled me. It's called From Tech Genius to Unmotivated Mess, and you can find it on YouTube, which is how I stumbled across it. A 30-year-old man named Logan who has worked a successful IT job in the past, well enough to outright buy himself a $500,000 house, which is incredible. I'm yet to afford a house at all. He achieves massively, only for his motivation to then seemingly collapse. He doesn't really wash, clean, eats and sleeps very little, attempts work in his office only to find himself staring at a blank screen before giving up. He spends almost all of his life lying on the sofa, unable to really do anything beyond watching TV and just feeling numb. It's a very striking change from someone who not just earns that much in the first place, but set up a private business and has individually developed an app to 90% completion. You don't do any of that without a considerable amount of work and daring to throw yourself into things. So what changed from then to where he is now?
Logan was always lazy, but because he was successful, we didn't realize it.
Okay, I guess that's one answer. Look, let's just get into it, shall we? So there's a very obvious point you might imagine is behind Logan's change in behaviour. I'm going to quiz you on that later on in what might be the world's easiest pop quiz. What's the difference between a quiz and a pop quiz? I don't know. But that obvious point is what we're going to get to second in this video, because that's where things really hit the fan in this episode. Before we get to that, the episode starts with the usual ludicrous over-the-top dramatics and transitions that I've just come to expect from American TV.
He sleeps in the same clothing for up to a month. That's right, a month. So he's 3 steps ahead in the morning.
That isn't a particularly egregious example, but Phil does have a habit for trying to crack jokes about the guests, which is often at odds with the whole idea of a wholesome, safe space show for healing. He's never going to deliver quality jokes either. He's just not got the delivery.
You got a half a century ahead of you. That's a long time on the couch. I mean, I hope that's a really good couch.
It's a pretty nice couch.
Also, I just love in how the clip showing Logan's life, they filmed it with him watching Dr. Phil on the TV. I don't know why I find that so funny. Anyway, it's the typical beginning of the show. We're supposed to be appalled by this life that goes against everything the good citizens of America value and take pride in. Personally, I don't much care if he only showers once a week or 2 weeks and wears Velcro shoes because he can't bother tying laces and whatever else. He might not smell the best in person, sure. I've got a very weak sense of smell. But I don't see why we should be disgusted by him or anything like that. He's got the right to live as he wants to live in his own home. I might be concerned these things are a reflection of deeper mental health issues. Yes, definitely. In fact, with all his other struggles, they almost certainly are. But on its own, someone not washing or tying their shoes, that might not be anything at all. Let's not treat him like some mad feral beast, you know? Phil himself describes him as a slob, and then he says, "At last! Atlas! Atlas VPN." This video is sponsored by Atlas VPN. I don't normally do sponsors, but this is a company I actually really like. I've used VPNs a lot in the past. I've not always been satisfied. My girlfriend has used Atlas VPN though. She's recommended it to me. I tried it myself, and yeah, now here we are. I'm recommending it to you. Particularly if you like the idea of a 3-year subscription for just $1.99 a month. Atlas VPN, a virtual private network that, you know, basically moves all your internet traffic through an encrypted tunnel, masks your IP address, has all these cool tracker blocking and data breach things, and it's damn handy if you wanted to browse the internet as though you're in another country. Maybe you live here in little old Britain and you can't view a lot of the stuff in big young America. You can't view a lot of their content on the British version of Netflix unless you turn on Atlas VPN and make Netflix think you're American. I like that I can connect to unlimited devices with a single account. I especially like that they have a 24/7 live chat support line. I don't know, what support I'd ever need, but it's nice to know it's there. 3 years of Atlas VPN for $1.99 a month with a 30-day back guarantee. Yeah, I've slapped a link in the description and slapped one as a pinned comment if you fancy an 82% discount on Atlas VPN. At last! Atlas VPN, I came up with that slogan all by myself, aren't I clever? Phil himself describes him as a slob, and then we get to his sister explaining why Logan is the way he is.
My mom has enabled Logan his whole life. If Logan tells her that he can't take care of himself, she is on the next plane to his house.
We get quite a lot of talk about enabling in this episode, with Phil making a point about his mum's enabling when she's skeptical about her son getting a haircut.
It says, let's rebrand this guy. Let's give him a new look, a new feel, and his mom says, no, 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 no.
There's just this general narrative that develops about a soft mum who never raised Logan to stand on his own 2 feet, therefore, of course, he's turned out some unwashed feral beast who doesn't tie his shoes and whatever else he does that's appalling. She's a bad parent, she should have been tougher, but none of this feels at all relevant. Logan's struggles are not the result of an enabling mum, because Logan was very successful, not even by a stroke of luck. He had a good job, he chose to buy a house far away from his family, he chose to take the risk and develop his own app all by himself, which is a tremendous amount of work and spirit and just fortitude, I guess, to dive into a risk like that. All of it would suggest that something changed long after an age where he was living with his mum. Maybe that's something broad and ongoing, maybe it's something direct, like a specific event Logan went through, who knows? You'd have to ask him to find out, and not once is that question asked. Instead, they talk about an enabling mother as though Logan is addicted to laziness or something, for which then his mum is left feeling guilty for this enabling and the sister is kind of satisfied, which as well I think is its own thing to wonder about. How much his sister pushes this idea about enabling, I think it says a lot more about her than it does about Logan.
Logan's biggest dream would be that he is rich enough to never lift a finger. He would hire cooks to feed him, to dress him, to clean his home. My mom never put her foot down or said enough was enough.
Exactly what it says about her, I don't know, we don't really see enough, but she's very forceful, almost resentful about this point. Phil himself begins the show saying he thinks there's more to it than enabling, and then sort of seems to backtrack and then lead down a conversation about it that dominates most of the episode.
I think this is way past mom enabling. So you got him Velcro shoes.
I did.
That's a little enabling. I got to go with you eating on that one. I got to give you that.
The ultimate conclusion is mum should stay away from Logan, not go visiting him when he asks for help. Instead, leave it all in the perfectly professional, capable, probably very expensive hands of Coach Mike.
The plan is we have a structured time you wake up. So you'd be getting up at 7 a.m., you would be working on the app, and we would just do it as if we're turning on an exam or something important, so we would just get it done.
Yeah, just get it done. Simple. My expert treatment plan is that we just go and get it done. That is basically his answer here. Plus, like, a timetable for his life. He vaguely mentions group therapy, uses the word structure a couple more times, and that's about it. I feel like I might be mocking a bit too much, more so than I've done in my other videos. Maybe I'm becoming less fair as I watch more and more Dr. Phil, I don't know. But in principle, some of this could be great. Some semblance of routine can make people feel a lot more in control of their lives. I guess on the other hand, you can say that at 30 years old, it could make you feel less independent, less empowered to have some bloke organising everything and telling you when to get up. So that's true, and you'd probably need some moderation there, but fine, it could be offering something great. It's hard to tell when he's waffling so much. He talks about setting goals for the work, which I think sounds absolutely pointless unless it means sitting down with someone tech savvy, someone who can understand what Logan is on about when he talks coding and things. Someone he can properly discuss the massive ball ache of jobs he needs to do to get this app finished, who can help him understand that better, and they can make sense of it and set very specific goals within the coding that mean something. I don't understand coding though, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about there. But I do partly wonder if a lot of the struggle could be that he's reached a point with the coding where he got stuck, something very difficult to solve, and he largely knows how to fix the problem, but it's such a mass amount of work to do so daunting he can't even bring himself to start it. And then at the same time, he can't give up either because he's put so much time and risk into this project. All that pressure riding on this app where he's gotten stuck, and how that could just make him feel paralysed. That's combined with other mental strains he might be going through. Can someone in a very literal sense unstick this coding problem? That might help. And obviously group therapy, again, that could mean nothing. It could mean something. We don't know. It's just a word thrown in there. I'm not going to completely kick Coach Mike, even if, having trained extensively as a counsellor and psychotherapist, I can't help feeling a little sceptical of anyone calling themselves a life coach. This all could be good stuff, but ultimately it doesn't matter whether it's good or not. It doesn't matter if any of this makes a difference to Logan's life. It all serves its job of pitching to us as the audience, convincing us they can do something positive to help this man, giving us nice feelings that the episode has been wrapped up, showing us something maybe that us in the audience might want to pay money for ourselves. The truth of any of this is totally irrelevant, provided it sounds mildly convincing as an advert, So yeah, tell the mum to stay away instead of asking enough to understand the way she tries to help Logan and if things could be tweaked there so that the support she offers is more beneficial. Don't look into any of that, or with the sister or anyone else. Just leave it all to the people who cost money. Therapy and, I guess, life coaching in this example can be great. Obviously I'm going to say that, but they're never supposed to be the one and only solution, the one thing you depend on in your life, Whatever else it is, friends, family, environment, other factors around you are all still massively important, so don't isolate them in place of dependence on some bloke called Mike. Time and time again, the show ends up feeling like a big advert for expensive ranches and courses, Coach Mike's fancy books, a Doctor on Demand app. The story of very real people's lives squeezed into a contrived narrative that doesn't necessarily fit, but does give us a place to advertise some sacred cure. Here is our advert to you, audience. At last! Right, enough of me mocking Phil's advertising tendencies only to give you an advert myself. Let's get into the real meat of this episode now. So, the pop quiz. A man who struggles to do anything, barely eats, barely sleeps, feels incredibly numb a lot of the time. What do you imagine might be a cause in all of this? Depression, if you answer that, that's correct. It's probably depression. At the very least, it's worth raising the question. It might not be the case, but you'd want to at least ask it, And yet, not once in this entire episode is the word even used. The closest we get is right at the beginning when Phil asks the mum what she thinks is wrong with her son. She answers,
"Well, I almost feel like maybe there's a chemical imbalance or something. I'm concerned that there's something mentally not firing properly in his brain.
I don't quite know if she means depression and is just wording it weird because of how depression can cause chemical imbalances as much as be a symptom of them, or if she's basically saying, is my son right in the head? I don't know. It could be that. Is my son a bit mental? How far society has progressed. But she's asking something along the lines of depression here that you'd hope Phil would pick up on, but instead he avoids answering it, and I kept waiting for it to be brought up. What's about depression? This is someone who used to be pretty motivated. Are they depressed? When did things start to change for you, Logan? Was it after moving away, maybe? Did you find yourself becoming a bit isolated in this house, far from family and friends? Have you had any relationships? How did they go? What experiences have you been through? Has the struggle to finish the app left you feeling hugely demotivated and like a failure? Who knows what? There's a billion questions you could ask here, or a million at the very least. The point is you can't understate how much depression can, in a lot of situations, make it feel near impossible to do even the simplest of tasks. I can vividly remember that myself. It's a point a lot of people don't fully understand, and it seems very relevant and important one to mention to Logan, to his family, to the audience in this episode. And even in that light, maybe you don't want the mum to stay away. Maybe Logan needs to feel a bit cared for. Is that so mad an idea? Maybe the support she gives isn't the most helpful and could do with adjusting. We don't know because it's barely discussed. But, if you're struggling with depression, it's not so alien to want support and care from your mum, is it? Instead of that, it's just this narrative about enabling, or Logan being lazy, or thinking negatively.
Maybe you want to spend another 53 years and 6 months on the couch.
And a whole episode of these people scratching their heads about why Logan is struggling. Phil even asks Logan himself, and he's not sure.
Do you know what I think it is?
Nope. What do you think it is?
You're going to be shocked off the couch, is what I say.
Of course they leave a break before he answers, but this is it. He's going to mention depression. They're finally going to talk about it. Are you ready? He gets back from the break, he recaps where they're at, and then he says,
and here's my answer. I don't care.
This had me full on belly laughing when I watched it the first time. I so did not expect that as a response. It's absolutely mad.
I don't care. I absolutely don't care what it is. It doesn't make any difference.
What the hell is this show? How can anyone be pretending to be a doctor and then not care why someone is struggling? It's so dumb. And they all applaud him like he said something super profound.
Your life is on fire. I don't care why. We can talk about why later.
I bloody well care, Phil. It might be important, The analogy he gives is that if your house is on fire, you don't stand around debating why it's on fire. You get water and you put it out. But if somebody comes into hospital with a strange illness or something, you do stand around debating why they're ill, and you run tests and you figure out exactly why and how to help them. It's not like someone goes to the hospital, I'm really ill, I think I've accidentally drunk some poison.
I don't care.
I'm just going to give you an ice pack or perform bloodletting or something and assume that solves it. It's not technically funny when there's people who take everything Phil says as gospel, but just the build-up of the ad break, the dramatic pause before he answers, the comedic timing on this, and how it took me by surprise, it's just brilliant.
And here's my answer. I don't care.
Maybe he does have good delivery after all. Also, he spent half of this episode asking the mum, asking the sister, Logan, all why he's so demotivated. If he doesn't care and it doesn't matter, why the hell waste half the episode asking them? Just to add build up to your conclusion to make you look even smarter? Is that literally it? So then Phil pulls up some list of the stuff Logan tends to say, making the overall argument that Logan's response to most things is what's the point? What's the point of doing anything? And I think he's right there, which again sounds like depression, and you'd hope that's where his next point is leading, but instead Phil kind of just tells him off for thinking negative thoughts, as though he can just replace that with positivity in some super simplified, super basic version of CBT. You know, CBT is not as straightforward as just forcing yourself to think positive, because that can be its own unhealthy, disastrous attitude. And even then, as the mum asks,
How do you change the program? That's what I want to know. So how does he change his
Gotta
program?
rewrite the code
Different
somehow.
input.
which is what we come to next. Can you guess what the answer's going to be?
I'm a strong believer that you got to shake it up to break it up. Change something. Get new stimuli. Signal it's a new day.
I'm not going to completely knock this advice. The changes we make symbolically can have an effect. At the same time though, we all go through New Year's resolutions, signalling a new day, a new beginning, a new cycle, and the motivation we have there doesn't often last long. I think it lasts even less so when Logan himself isn't the one instigating change here. He's not the driving force behind some big change, because he's not in that frame of mind at the moment.
The only problem I'm seeing is I'm doing it because you're telling me that that's the right thing to do.
Right. He needs to learn to do it for himself and not others.
If he was in that frame of mind, sure, this might be quite different, but he's not, so it's more just forced change they're shoving on him that might mean nothing to him personally. Absolutely nothing. What do they do though? The wonderful help they offer. They give Logan a haircut. Yep. Just trim his hair and acts like this is some massive transformation. They literally cut his hair a bit shorter, and the mum's all like,
I'm thrilled and thankful, and oh my gosh, this is a dream come true. That's my kid.
if anything, I think his hair looks worse. But they do that. They give him shoes he has to tie up rather than the Velcro ones he normally wears, because
Because you're fully capable at 30 years old of walking, tying your shoes, putting the effort together. Because literally it's walking through life being that better version of yourself.
yes, he's fully capable of tying shoes. He's fully capable of earning money for a $500,000 house, Mike. The point is, he doesn't have the motivation to do those things at the moment. Tying shoes doesn't make you feel motivated. It's such a pseudo-therapeutic nonsense here, you know, taking something that can have minor differences in certain circumstances and then forcing it onto someone who looks entirely indifferent and pretending it fixes everything. They talk about how he needs to wash clothes more and has to shower every day, and Logan asks,
If I'm not getting sick, my skin's still looking good, why do I need to shower more often?
which is technically a great question, you know. He's kind of got a point. He works from home, so there's no trouble there in terms of washing. Phil tells him it's because he will get sick if he doesn't wash more. The only reason it's not made him sick yet is because he's only 30, but when he's older, it will. Logan showers once every week or 2 weeks. My granddad has spent his entire life only having one bath every Saturday, and he's in his mid-90s now. It's only the last year or so where bad health has caught up with him. You can't scare Logan into washing more like he's a child. And this is so beside the point still. Who gives a damn how much he washes unless it's a reflection of deeper mental health issues? And if it is, in which case, focus on them, not the washing itself. If he does absolutely needs to wash more, then I think the reason for that is because it feels good. It makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself, like you deserve love and care, and like you can be in control. If there's a reason, I think it's that. Instead, though, he's given parental scare tactics 101, like all of the don't stare at the sun or you go blind stuff, don't go in the rain or you catch your death, don't sit close to the TV or your eyes will get glued to it. They cut his hair, give him shoes, and then Coach Mike advertises his extensive course without properly explaining any of it. The end. Look, this isn't the absolute worst episode of Dr. Phil I could have picked to talk about. I don't really just want to pick out these standout awful examples. All the same, I find it so baffling for a show that advertises itself not as therapy but as something along the lines of therapy to then actively push all attention away from understanding the emotional difficulties. I've criticised Phil in the past for how he handles mental health issues and how untherapeutic he is in response to them, but this here is deliberately denying mental health issues. And whilst there is some degree of nuance to the message here, it isn't quite as straightforward as that. It's still very, very easy for a lot of susceptible people to watch this episode and take away the idea that depression is basically just laziness. You need to just make people get on with it, get it done, just do it. The modern world is very strange, I think. There are so many factors to the world that can mean depression, mental health issues, suicide are all very much on the rise. And yet not only does it all get thrown onto the individual struggling, like all of the problems are their fault, stuff in their specific brains, rather than, maybe they have very good reasons to be struggling. Not only that, but then they get attacked for struggling, as though they're just lazy and pathetic and soft, or don't want to do better. Logan does not want to spend the rest of his life on the sofa, whatever Dr. Phil questions. He wants to grow. Everybody wants to grow deep down. He's just hit a point the same way any of us could do at any stage in our life if enough happens, where we need support. There's nothing wrong in that. We're supposed to be a social species that works best in groups, and that means supporting each other. It doesn't make you pathetic or lazy to sometimes need that. It's a part of our nature. So I guess that's what I wanted to say. Help doesn't have to mean mollycoddling and total independence the way certain groups always argue for the sake of a straw man. Help can literally mean exactly what it's supposed to mean. Help. At its best, I think it leaves you empowered, not feeling weak or dependent or mollycoddled. Thank you again to Atlas VPN for sponsoring the video. Let me know your thoughts, good stuff, bad stuff, things I missed or got wrong or didn't explain very well. Like the video if you did like this, check out my other Dr. Phil videos, or subscribe for other stuff altogether. Support me on Patreon to help keep this channel going, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Janice McMahon, Luke Hoare, Treachu Gaber, Michael Gallagher, InSquares, Flying Spider, Samara Salsi, Joshua C. Follier, Chad Bramwell, and Zachary Herreras. Thank you.